So I'm just going to start and talk about, sorry, I just want to talk about technology in thoroughbreds and what I see as the challenges and utilizations of this technology is, and where I see the thoroughbred industry going. So I just want to pinpoint three things that I'd like to get across the board and have you guys take away. The first is to actually look at when and how technology should be applied in the racing world. The second thing is how can it actually help and make an impact? And the third part is what I'm actually currently doing and where I see this going. So I have the agenda up here, so you'll be able to refer back to the meeting on YouTube. So for those friends who are not here live, hi, nice to see you, Alex here. You can refer back to this agenda page, so you'll be able to click on different parts of the video and jump to that section. Oops. So I'm just going to briefly introduce myself for those who don't know me. I'm Alex, and my background is actually in politics, economics, and data science. So that's my discipline, and that's where I studied academically. And then I studied entrepreneurship, and I focused mainly on looking at risk drivers and what causes these type of behaviors in venture capitalist firms. So why would they invest in 100 startups when all of them are very low chances of succeeding, which is quite similar to the yearling sales, quite similar to buying horses for some people. So that's how I started getting into horses and being interested in it. After this, I studied computer science at the University of Hong Kong, and I decided to drop out and pursue a career in building a startup in horse technology. So before that, I've worked at banks, consulting firms, and hedge funds, and I left the corporate world to start my own startup, and I have experience in AI startups specifically, and I'm currently starting a new venture in horse technology. So I think the main question for many people when they see me and think about political scientists, why racing? Why go into a field that's so different from what you know? Well, I think there's three main reasons, and as it says on the page, I really love horses. The second is there's a lot of data, and I love data. And the third is there's complexity and dynamism to this sport. So I'll go deeper in depth. I've been very fortunate to be in contact with horses and be able to ride horses, play with horses, and be part of racing ever since I was a young age. And this family tradition has really been able to grow my love for this animal and be able to have a connection with them. And so because of that, I really want to make an impact and show my love for these animals. The second part is data abundancy. I'm a person who loves patterns. I like understanding things and I like pattern recognition. So that's my key skill set. And I like analyzing things. So when you have a sport with so much data, it's something that interests me a lot. And it's something that I really want to be involved and get into. So the third is the complexity and dynamism component. So it's a sport that truly everything and anything can happen. So this photo is from a Group 3 Lion Rock Trophy from 2025. And my horse was way out of the handicap. So for those who are into horse racing, a handicap weight is given to each horse to make it fair for the different horses with different ratings to race and all have an equal chance. So theoretically, if we just look at a mathematical approach, the top horses, excluding the bottom four, should all equally finish in the same length at the same time. And anyone in the red, where they're carrying more weight than they should not make it. They should not win. They should lose by, well, a weight surplus of 2 pounds should be 1 length, and then 3 would be 1.5 lengths, 10 would be 5 lengths, and my horse should finish 8.5 lengths behind everyone else. So the point I'm saying is this is a very complicated sport where there's more than 17, 18, 20-something factors that leads to why a race is won or lost. And I like that because pure math doesn't work. So how am I pursuing this passion? How am I actually getting myself into racing? So I personally manage Bloodstock, which is my family's horse racing interests. We race in 6 jurisdictions, and I've been very fortunate to learn from John Foote, who is my mentor, and we've been going to yearling sales. I've been learning as much as I can from him. I am also the founder of the HKU Equine Analytics and Bioinformatics Lab that I found with John. And I am also the founder of EquiTech, which is how and why I dropped out of HKU is because we took this lab and spun it off into its own company. And we've collected data from 3 continents, and we've been growing and building different technologies. So I will go through the technologies I'll be building after this. So what are my goals? Why am I in racing? And how can I make an impact? I think there's 4 main areas I really like to highlight. So firstly, I want to attract more youth into racing. I want young people to grow the sport and to be able to respect it for what it is, which is it is a sport, not just punting. Punting is a big factor, but without fans, racing is nothing. Secondly, I'd like to develop and promote tech infrastructure and adopt these infrastructures into racing. So I've been very fortunate to be in the tech world and be a bit in the finance world. Now I'd like to apply these thought processes, these technologies, these understandings and ideas into racing to make a difference. 3, I really care about equine welfare, and I think the horses are the central most important component of racing. I think one thing that really inspires me is looking at the Japanese racing where there's so many fans who respect each horse. Each horse is well cared, well taken in, well received. There's media, and it's about the horse. And I'd like to build this level of respect and grow that type of mentality across racing as a whole. The 4th part is about finding value. And I really like solving puzzles and understanding things and coming up with solutions. And so that's why, for me, it's important that it's intellectually stimulating as much as it is fun. So in this segment, I'm going to talk about, from a tech perspective, what are the challenges that racing has? And I would like to break down these concepts so it's easy for you to understand and people can start thinking about racing from a different perspective. So I think there's 4 main technical challenges of racing that are very prevalent, and I would like to explain it and break it down so it's easier for everyone. So the first part is metrics and conceptual measures. The second is scalability issues. The third is proxy measurements. And the 4th is calibration and reliabilities of our technologies. So let me just go through metrics and conceptual measures. So what is a concept? A concept is an idea. It's a construct. It's something we think about, something we understand, but we can't touch. It's intangible. So what is wealth? What is health? What is poverty? What is success? These are what we call concepts. And so when you have something that can't be touched, can't be measured, can't be seen, what do you do? How do you measure how strong or weak it is? For example, pain. How strong is your pain? How weak is your pain? How healthy are you? How unhealthy are you? So we call these concepts, and we have a new term of thinking called conceptual measurements. So conceptual measurements is trying to come up with different ways of taking these ideas and concepts and translating them into quantifiable, measurable variables, things that we can measure, touch, see, and understand. So I think there's 2 main ways of doing this. So index versus scale. And I'm going to explain them one by one in my examples and break it down so it's simpler. So if there's any questions in the segments or in the technical section, please feel free to write on the Q&A so I can actually answer your questions afterwards and be able to provide a better analysis for you. So index. What is an index? An index is addition or subtraction of these different variables in order to get a whole picture. So for example, GDP, which is the whole net worth of a country. How do we calculate this? It's a very simple calculation, which is how much the government spends, plus how much consumers spend, plus how much investment is put into the country, plus how much they export to different countries minus how much they import. So this equation by Kuznets was designed in 1934. So it's a simple index. A plus B plus C plus D equals total. So that's one way of looking at concepts. The second way is called a scale. So when we say what is success in golf, you're adding up all the points, right? So what does that points mean? The measurement you're trying to do is the best golfer should hit the ball in the least amount of shots. So they have a par, which means this is how much we should hit. It should be 65 strokes. We should hit 18 holes. So how many times above that number means how much off you are from the standard. And that's the handicap score. So that is something we call a scale. A scale measures not just this concept, but how intense this is. So for example, how good is someone at something? How bad is someone at something? It's a rank. It's relative to each other. So in football, a win is 3 points, a draw is 1 point, and a lose is 0 point. So we add up all the points at the end of the season, and whoever has the most points wins. But it's not just a winner or loser. You have a rank of first place, second place, third place, fourth place, fifth place. So this is what we call a scale. So in horse racing, what scales do we use? The highest handicap, the highest prize money. There's different ways of measuring what success is. So to put this in a horse context, what makes a good horse? I think this is a question that not everyone can agree on. Is it stamina? Is it speed? Is it their class? Is it how healthy they are and sound? Is it their temperament? So I've put 4 photos of what people would consider a good horse, right? You have Orfevre in the top left, who ran second in the arc twice, but he was known for having extremely poor temperament, going crazy, running off the track. You have Kaiying Rising, who's like a machine, and he has speed. You have Romantic Warrior, who seems to be a classic animal, just wins all the classic races, is very tough and strong as a warrior. He's 8 and he's still winning. And then you have Urban Sea, who was known for not just winning the arc, but also her ability to produce Galileo and see the stars. So I think the main thing I want to say with this is there's no real answer. It's up to you to decide what a good horse is and come up with a way of measuring what is a good horse. So this is what we call conceptual measures and metrics. So the key point and takeaway from this is don't just add up numbers. We're not just creating an index and adding everything up. Or in some certain cases, you do want an index. So when you look at Dan O'Sullivan's ratings, Bayer speed ratings, these are scales. So these are scales of, well, for Bayer speed, Dan O'Sullivan is based on sectional times. So these are ways people are rating horses and ranking them against each other in order to either get an edge in punting or understand more about the horse. There's different ways to represent the same idea. So it's up to you to decide how you want to represent these ideas and how do you want to use the technology to represent the ideas in the way you want. So I think the second question and issue is data access. So it's very, very, very hard to build anything with no data. And I think everyone understands that. So the key question is not, do we need data? It's, we definitely need data. But number one, is it worth recording? Does what we measure add positive value to what we're doing? If the answer is no, it's not worth building technology. The second part, this data that might be useful, like the VO2 max, which is how much oxygen a horse can consume, the lactic acid buildup, private sales information, training data. Do you have access to that? The trainers might have it, but when you're buying a horse, you might not have access. So the question is, do you have access to this data, and is it worth recording if you do? If the answer is no to any one of these 2 questions, whatever technology you build is useless. So let's talk about scalability and where I see the technology going. I think a lot of people are into this idea of AI agentic agents. For those who don't know what an AI agentic agent is, it's when you use an AI to build a robot, and that robot does one task for you. So imagine an army of robots doing different small tasks for you. So that's what we call agentic AI. So the problem with agentic AI is how scalable is it? And I think this applies to what we're doing in the horse world and the technology. It's number one, can we build technologies that we can scale and it can manage more information. And number two, if we do these technologies and build them out, and we are looking for some sort of information, how valuable is that information for us knowing about the whole population, not just that little group of horses? So I think with that, I'd like to explain a deeper, more scientific concept. So please, if you don't understand, it's okay, put it in the Q&A and I'll explain it in more depth. So when we do an experiment and we understand things, there's two types of tests. Number one is called internal validity. The second is external validity. So what does that mean? So internal validity means that when we're using our technology or we're doing an experiment or doing a study, we are confident that whatever we found to be true, our findings, are true within that group of horses, within that group of people, within that group. We are very confident what we know is true. So external validity, on the other hand, means what you know from that test should be applied across the whole world. It should be true everywhere else. So if I could put this in simple terms, internal validity is what I know is true, and I know it's true. External validity means what I know is true everywhere else. So let me give an example in horse terms as well. Star Spangled Banner is very, very, very good in Hong Kong. They have a very high strike rate of 67% winners to runners ratio, 13% win rates per run, and there's about 64 wins from 303 runs, which is about 21% win rate, 12% second, 10% third. So these horses seem to do really well in Hong Kong. And some people say it's the firm ground, people say it's the environment. We're not sure, but we're assuming that they like the firm ground, they like the environment. This is why it makes all sense, why they like Hong Kong. So this is our assumption. Our study says internally, it is true that Star Spangled Banners are good on firm ground because Hong Kong is firm ground. So external validity would be, how good are Star Spangled Banners around the world? Is it true that because we have firm ground, we have good ground in Hong Kong, so conditions are the same in that sense? Does that mean that horses like Star Spangled Banner, who run well in Hong Kong, will also run well in Japan? So that's the question. That's the difference between internal and external. So it's very much easier to prove internal validity. It's extremely difficult to prove external validity. So another example would be Wootton Bassett. Wootton Bassett's best horse is probably Almanzor in his first crop. And he's also had horses such as Constitution River, who's a standout juvenile, won the French Derby recently, who can run on firm ground and soft ground. But most of them run on soft ground and have done well in Europe. So we are very, very certain Wootton Bassett is very, very good in Europe. Do we know if they're that good in Australia? So currently we haven't been able to prove that. They are the top of the line. They've been winning all the Group 1s. So that's another example of internal versus external validity. So when we build these type of technologies, we're either A, trying to build some technology where we can get external validity and we can test that, or we make something easier. So we try to create stuff that are low value and low effort, low input, and make it high value so that the information, the data we're getting is worth more than what we're putting in. Or we take things that are very hard to do and we make it easier to do. So you're going from high value and high input to high value, low input, or low value, low input into high value, low input. So this is why we build technology, is to either increase value or make things easier to do. So the third part is proxy measures. So how can we measure things indirectly? I think this is a very, very key component of technology and why we're using it. Imagine going to a horse sale and there's 1,000 horses and you want to measure the height. Would you take a yardstick or measuring tape and measure every single horse? That would take a very long time. So that's what we say here with scalability. The value, there is high value to it, but it takes a lot of time and effort. It's high input. So how do we do it and create a low input version of it. We need to guess. We need to guess how we can actually measure the height of a horse. We need to guess how can we use technology, things we know already, to guess something that we don't know. So let me give you an example. This is a horse that we have named Ride Like Michelle. So this baby is actually our horse and we love her dearly. If you look at her, just as an example, if I told you to guess the height of her when she's a baby, what would you do? You might not know the height. You don't know, it's just image. But what if I told you the mare is 16.2? Obviously, this is not, I don't know if this is true or not. This is just an example. But if the mare, so the mom horse, is 16.2, you by yourself, relatively looking at the two different horses, will be kind of able to guess the height of the baby. So this is what proxy measurements mean. Using relativity. You use a piece of information you do know, and you try to guess information you don't know. So where do we see this in horse racing? I think if you look at stride length, so if you go on racing.com or Racing Post and you see the stats on the horses, and you can see the stride length or the speeds, maximum speeds. So these are calculated and they're not measured directly. So what I mean by that, so when we look at a horse's stride length, so how far a horse can reach its legs out, what we're actually measuring is the amount of distance they're covering, which is probably the distance of a race, and just counting the number of times they move their legs, striding. And so by doing so, you take the number of strides and you divide it by the distance, then you can calculate your stride length. So this is what we call a proxy measure. You're not measuring it directly, but you know it's correct, and you're assuming it's correct because you've done this. So a horse's speed is the distance it's traveled, so the race over its time, and you'll be able to get the average speed. For momentum, how much energy is being transferred from a horse? If you know the weight of a horse and you multiply it by the speed which you've calculated, you know its momentum. So if there's potential collisions between horses, which this is quite complicated if you talk about 3 dimensions and different directions, but assuming it's just straight forward or back, you can calculate how much impact there is between 2 different horses. And so when we look at objections, we look at things where we need to say, hey, this horse was blocked off and it lost this much speed. Well, now you can calculate it. So these are the things that proxy measures are useful for. So I want to talk about the last concept, and I think this is the main key component that really hammers home the point. Everything we do with horses, especially in technology, relies on proxy measurements because we do not have access to touch the horse, feel the horse, and interact with it during a race or when there's a lot of horses. It's extremely difficult and is a hard process. So technology is more focused on creating technologies that take high input, high degree of difficulty actions and making it lower. So what calibration reliability means, number one, how do we make sure the measurements we've taken that we know to be true from the cameras, from the speedometers, from the GPS systems when we put it in the bibs of a horse, how do we know they're accurate and they're true? So one example would be the type of lens we use. So if I take a photo of someone with a fisheye lens, their face will be wide and round. If I take it from a normal lens, they would look normal. If I take a pincushion lens, their face will be squished to the middle. So the different type of lens also changes how a photo looks. So when you say, hey, their head is actually that small, it looks like a gumdrop, is that true in real life or no? Is it the bias introduced by the lens? It's something that's not accurate or not? So our technology needs to be able to understand this and be able to correct for it. So let me give you an example. So this is a photo of the same exact time in the same race. If you look at the photo on the left, the first horse beats the second horse by a lot. The second horse beats the third horse by a lot. It's very clear as day. But if you think about it, where is the angle of the camera? It's behind the winning post, taking a photo back towards the horses. And so it looks like there's a big gap. But if you look at the second photo, which we see, the second horse and the third horse, there's a very minimal gap between the two, and it loses just by a nose. So when we're saying this camera is accurate, yes, it's accurate, but is the angle correct? Is the reflection of the light correct? How do we use technology in a way where we're ensuring that what we're measuring is correct? And I think this is the biggest challenge, and this is what calibration and reliability means. So in a horse racing context, what do stewards use? How do they prove this and fix for this? Well, they have something called the time axis. So each camera, in order to capture a photo, opens its lens and closes it. And so by doing so, it allows only a certain amount of light in before it closes. And that is the image that you get in a photo. So the smart scientists behind horse racing decided to measure that and open and close the lens at a specific interval so that every photo takes every distance on a photo measures a certain time, and you see the time axis. And so that's why if you can look at the horses, some legs look squashed, some legs look stretched out. So the more squash a horse is, it means the horse was traveling faster because it took them a shorter amount of time to cover further distance. Or if their leg is all stretched out, if their leg was stretched out, if their shape is stretched out, it means a horse is traveling faster. If it's all squished, then it's traveling shorter. It moved less distance in that same specific amount of time. So that's the concepts I'd like you to take away and think about. Where does it apply to racing? And I think that there's a lot of opportunities to build technology, to apply and use it. And now I'd like to give you examples of what I'm building and what I'm trying to do and where this is going to go with technology. So our vision with EquiTech, the company that we've started, is to redefine the equine industry through advanced digital and technological solutions. Basically, in simple terms, we want to take the technology that's out there, develop technology, and apply it to horse racing. We don't want fancy solutions. We want solutions that actually make sense, are practical, and are useful, and can help the people we care about. So we started the Hong Kong University Bioinformatics Laboratory and Equine Analytics. This was started in November 2024 and was funded by the university, especially the computer science department. And we decided to shut it down in January 2026. So the reason why we shut it down is because we want to commercialize, we want to build technologies and work with industry partners. And so we've moved towards a startup. We have Jerry Tam from the original team who does cancer research and looks at computer vision. There's John Foote as well. He's there in the photo, and myself. And so together we're EquiTech. So what is EquiTech? I think there's three main reasons that I've created EquiTech with John. But basically, it is the technology arm that I'm trying to impact racing with John. It is a extension of the University of Hong Kong laboratory. And it's mainly here for three reasons, which is to one, create meaningful change and actually impact the industry and to help it grow, help it apply technology and use it to help everyday processes. Two, to preserve and honor the knowledge and legacies of people like John Foote and Greg Nash, people who truly know the industry inside out, who deserve so much respect. And we would like to take that knowledge and preserve it in the technology and be able to influence the next generations and influence the people behind who come by and actually join this racing industry. And the third part is to create databases, because when you record things and have that information, that solves the idea of data access. And so new generations who are more tech savvy, who have ideas on different patterns, who have different theories, can go test that out and preserve that knowledge and take that and build new knowledge on top of that. And so our goal is to really shift the industry towards a new angle. So how are we applying this technology? I think everyone's seen us on at different areas and different places, maybe in the media. You guys have seen what we're doing. So I'd just like to share that with you. So first of all, I'd like to thank all our partners, all the collaborations, all the events we've had, and thank you to all those media partners as well and people who've invited us to talk about technology in horse racing. So I think one of the cool projects we've done was we went in as the HKU laboratory and we worked at the Hong Kong International Sales. So we were able to capture three-dimensional structures of the horses, measure their biomechanic informations, and take that information and do analysis to analyze these horses, to look at how they move, how they walk, and come up with different ideas of what a good horse might be. And that is the main general thing we're trying to solve. What is a good horse? And so it's pretty cool. So this is a 3D rendering. These are the actual raw data files that we have from the scans. And what we do is we're measuring the shape and the scale and the size of the horses. So this is a pretty cool implementation of technology that currently exists. So this is what we did on the tender horse. So I'll show you the end result. You can see these are not cameras, they're actually depth sensors and lasers. So we're able to measure horses from 3 dimensions and see how they walk, how they move. So this is the video we produced for Hong Kong Jockey Club. So this was lot 19, which actually has won 3 races in Hong Kong under Douglas White. So he's a pretty good horse, and we've been very lucky to be able to film him. So we have the 3D model. We can see we've taught the AI to find all its joints, so then we can calculate the different lengths of the bones, different important parts, and we've been able to do it in 3-dimensional space. So I think that's something that is quite cool and will aid information and health data. So in October 2025, we were also invited and collaborated on a research project with Inglis in Australia at their Ready to Run sale. And we were very fortunate to be able to work with them and scan horses and produce the same type of information analysis and really test our technologies. We were also able to do this more rudimentarily in Argentina. So being able to go to a stud farm, thank you Stud RDI, who invited us, and Bone Chance Farm, to film horses, analyze them. And also it helps us gather data about the differences of horses, their body shapes, why they do well in certain environments, why they don't. So this is about collecting data and understanding more about the horse and the industry. What's the philosophy behind their breeding? Why do horses have certain traits and characteristics? So we've also worked with trainer Cody Moe, and we're very grateful for his support and help in committing our studies, being able to do research. And so we've been filming only the horses owned by Bloodstock. And we've actually been trying to test out conformation analysis and gait studies for knees to look for offset knees. And you can see the 3D video taken by Cody. We're trying to measure and see if we can see how offset knees are, so how straight knees are while horses are moving, so that this can help and aid with the sales process and for health processes and also for vets. And you can see the background. Poor Cody has to walk backwards, but we're very, very grateful. So thank you very much. We were also invited to go to Japan to the Northern Farm Select Sale in 2025, and we collected some data and went to track work. And this was a very meaningful experience to be able to test out our theories, ideas, and to look at the Japanese breed, because they seem to be very long and different and quite light in their weight compared to the Hong Kong horses, and their stamina is through the charts compared to what we have. So it's very interesting to see that and analyze and be invited. So we're very grateful. So we've actually also done 3D scans, which everyone's seen. So this is our first prototype and being able to actually scan the horse. So obviously this video doesn't show much, but what's actually important is the numbers and the data we're collecting from these scans. This is just a visual representation. And once we have that, what we can do is, look, we can create VR models. So this was created with the Meta Quest. We were able to actually physically have a horse. So imagine being at home and seeing your horse walk in front of you, stride in front of you, walk around the horse, measure the horse, look at it, look at its knees, look at its conformation from the comfort of your home. So that's what we've been looking at developing and doing and seeing where we can go. Obviously, the technology has a long way to go and we need to develop it and process it further. but that's what we're aiming to do, and that's where we can see technology going.